Hello. Okay, just about to get started. I'll tell you where I'm headed. Okay, so the engine is all warmed up, the cold start is done, and let's go. So, first of all, hello to all of you crusaders to the cause of revving throttles. I always like a theatrical animated start, something to get your energies up, your spirits up. So where am I headed today? I am actually headed to a place called Adeshwar's Riders Arena, which is this motorcycle accessories and parts shop in Bangalore. So this is specifically in Lal Bagh Road, the Passport Office Road, as most of you may be knowing. Adeshwar is quite a reputed place in Bangalore. It's a part of the famed JC Road belt of automobile accessories shops, much like the Karol Bagh belt in Delhi, and I'm sure similar other areas in other states and cities as well. So I have known Kushal Jain, who's the proprietor of Adeshwar's, for quite a while now. Quite a smart entrepreneurial sort of a gentleman, very good at sales and very good at anticipating the need of customers, and I know that he is also working on quite a few ideas for accessories for the CB350, and when I reach his shop, hopefully I'll get a chance to pick his brains on some of the upcoming product pipeline that he and his design team are working on. Okay, so why am I going to Adeshwar's? I am going there because I had messaged Kushal in the morning inquiring about any solutions for the mud flap, which is a very real problem that I was talking about yesterday, and he said that yeah, there is something that he has, and I know that he had told me previously that he is actually working on some sort of a mud flap solution. So finally it seems to be available at his shop, and I'm going there to have a look. And the second question which I asked him is, what sort of a mud flap accessory is it? Is it something where one has to drill a hole in the mud guard, or is it something like a sticker? So thankfully, and probably as expected, knowing that Kushal also does not like these drilling solutions, he told me that what he has is more of a sticker type solution. So hopefully that exactly matches what I have in my mind as well. So I'll go there and I'll report back on it. Hopefully you will even get to see it on my Instagram. So I have created a new Instagram account this morning. It's called moto.chino, that is moto.ccino. So this is going to be my Instagram channel, which is going to be linked to the YouTube channel. So some of the questions or some of the requests which I get on YouTube, which are of a small micro nature, I hope to address them on Instagram. And Instagram's direct messaging feature also gives me that ability to interact with some of the subscribers on specific questions. So I will leave a link to this channel even in the description, so you can follow me if you like. Yeah, so that is one. The second thing on my mind today to talk about was these handlebar raisers. So I have installed them yesterday at the Honda Big Wing agency, and it was a 5-minute job actually. So what are my first thoughts on these? The first thoughts are these do make a little bit of difference in how you are able to access the handlebars. So for example, with the without the risers, the handle was somewhere a bit below, and my arms, when they gripped the handlebars, they used to be straight like this. But now, because of the fact that the handlebars have come a little bit towards me, I can detect that my back is a bit more straighter than what it used to be, a bit more relaxed than what it used to be. And I can also have a little bit of a bend in the elbow like this, which is actually the recommended handlebar holding position by the experts. So you should always have a bit of a bend in the elbow, and that's how it is recommended. So yes, these do help, definitely these do help. By how much it helps is always subjective. I feel, in my personal opinion, it helps a little bit. Previously with the stock single seat, the handlebar was in a very comfortable sort of an access reach position for me, and when I installed the split seat, I feel that the rider seat is actually a bit taller than the stock single seat, and because of that, obviously the handlebars went a bit by a couple of mm at most, but it became a bit more farther to me. But with these risers, I feel I have now got back the original sort of handlebar reach position which I had with the stock seat. So that's my conclusion, that's my immediate conclusion for now. Pretty much first thoughts. So yes, it does make a difference. It may not make a huge difference, at least for me it doesn't. Do I regret putting these? Absolutely not, absolutely not. Will I remove these and go back to the position as it used to be before? Absolutely not. I am going to keep these. And the next question when it comes to these risers are there any additional vibrations that I notice? Because that's the common sort of complaint with some of these handlebar risers, is the vibration. Absolutely none so far. At the sort of city speeds, absolutely no vibrations. I can't even tell the difference whether there are risers in place. So that's how well done these are. And these risers are by a company called Carbon Racing, one of our own Karnataka based companies. They're based in Tumkur, and the founder of this place, Ravi Charles, I consider him quite a bit of a design visionary, in the sense he has got a very unique take on product design. And usually somebody with a bit of a taste for design, who wants a bit of beauty in their products along with functionality, I find personally for me that Ravi's Carbon Racing products fit the bill. They check almost all the boxes I have in terms of aesthetics, in terms of functionality. Pricing, of course, one could argue that is the price slightly on the higher side. There is no real answer for this, guys, because the kind of quality which Ravi puts in his products, I mean, this is not just my opinion. I know many people who use Carbon Racing products, and I'm yet to hear a single sort of a complaint or a negative factor on his products. So very well done, very nice company. I quite like them. So you can order these risers on carbonracing.in, and if you go to you can easily find it, guys. Anybody with a bit of computer savviness can easily locate these products, and you can place an order. I paid about 1,200 rupees for these. They are aluminum finish, very light, very light. I thought this would be quite heavy, like a paperweight, but they are not. They are actually quite light. And Ravi also sends in 4 longish screws. These screws, because the stock screws are not long enough to accommodate these risers. So Ravi sends in 4 longer screws as well in the package, and they fit quite well. And after you replace the screws, these are caps actually. You see these smooth finishes, these are caps. So you can just pop these back into place. They just sit in the groove meant for the Allen key. So they just pop back into place, and to remove them you just have to use your fingernails, if they are strong enough, to just pop them out. So that's on that. Okay, so the carbon raising topic is covered. The mirrors were already addressed yesterday, and I will tell you very soon about the mud flap solution. Is it any good? And with all of that out of the way, today's vlog I wanted to cover a little bit on my motorcycling journey. So it's a bit of a flashback, so I hope I hope you are in for that sort of a thing. Okay, so my motorcycle journey actually starts even before my birth, in one sense. Oh, I'm getting all Bollywood here, guys, so bear with me. That's not the intention, to be to be lame and to be cringy, or to be stereotypical or something. That's not the intention. So my motorcycling journey actually starts before my birth, and what I mean by that is next time thought. Okay, so these are our transgender friends doing what they do at signals. Anyway, so yes, where was I? Yes, the motorcycling journey. So my father was a bit of a motorcycle fan himself. So back in the day when my father was young and full of vigor and vitality, in the days of his youth, he was actually a bodybuilder as well, something his son obviously didn't see much merit in. And there are still pictures of him with his shirt buttons open, bare chested, sort of 3-4 buttons open, and a big sort of a necklace hanging, and wearing that open face helmet and riding his ideal Java. I know it's quite a I paint quite a picture, but it's true. There are still some old pictures of him. I'll probably find them and scan them and put them on my Instagram sometime. But he was quite a motorcycle fan himself, and he had his Java days, he had his SD days. He even owned the original Rajdoot, which was given to him by the bank that he worked in. And yes, so I used to sit on the tank of his ideal Java, and I used to go with him everywhere, much like we do currently with our kids. So nothing much has changed. It's every Indian biker's ultimate dream to make their small kids sit on the tank and take them places, and the kids really love it, and much like I used to do when I was little. So one of my earliest experiences was when I was sitting on my father's ideal Java, and he turned a corner like this, exactly like this, and he was at quite a high speed, and he hit a car, and I flew from the tank onto the road. And I was quite little, and I remember the road made an impact on my jaw. Okay, so I hit my jaw on the road, and I was quite in shock. Luckily nothing out of place in terms of injuries or anything. I had a bit of bleeding on my chin, except that surprisingly the rest of it was all good. And my father immediately parked his bike and came running, and much to his much to his worries or concern, I was absolutely fine. Nothing that a small treatment of tincture or band-aid couldn't fix. So I have that chin mark even today, because it was quite a fall. A little bit of that of those battle wounds are with me even today. So my father is quite surprised that I still recall this incident, because I must have been about 3 years old at that time, 3 or 4 years. And he wonders how a 4-year-old child can still remember this incident 40 years later. I don't know. I think some of these incidents, especially if they are of a very memorable nature, I suppose one does not tend to forget them so easily. So yeah, that's on that. And coming back to the motorcycling journey, so my father had all of these bikes, and I some of the specific incidents that I recall, he had parked his Rajdoot on in our compound in Jayanagar, where we used to live. And one morning when we actually woke up, when my mother woke up, typically the women folk of the house, they wake up early in the morning to, you know, do their early morning stuff, like in the case of most of South Indians, washing the front of the house with water, and the rangoli and all that sort of a thing. So when she woke up to do all of that, she saw that our front door had been bolted from outside, and yeah, it was obviously the handwork of some thief who had jumped on our compound in the night. And okay, these roads seemed okay. Thankfully there is a way here. Okay, so somebody had bolted our front door from the outside, and when my mother peeped in and saw my father's Rajdoot, the 175cc one, parked in the compound, she saw that the engine was missing. So that was the first burglary. No, actually there was another theft before this. So the engine was missing, and then it was a bike given by the bank. So we had to file a notice with the bank and with the police for the theft, and obviously we didn't get anything back from that. So I think the bank replaced the engine, and my father continued to ride it for quite some time. So that was on that. And the other theft which had happened is, my father had bought a brand new Luna a moped from Tumkur, and he took delivery of it. It was the pride of his possession, and he went somewhere to Jayanagar 4th block, and he parked it in front of his friend's house. And just 10 minutes later when he came out, it was gone. The Luna was gone. It was all of 4 or 5 days old, and it was gone, and it stayed gone. We did all of the police complaints and everything, but obviously, yeah, it just left. So that was another thing. And I recall the other incident around 1986. My father was posted in Patna, Bihar, because of his bank service. And I'll tell you how much of a motorcycle nut my father is. Okay, so he was okay, let me stop talking, it sounds ridiculous. Okay, let me just make sure if I'm recording. I'm not sure what happened there. Hang on. Okay, we are on. Right, so yeah, I was trying to tell you how much of a motorcycle nut my father was. So when we were in Bihar, he had been sent after one of his promotions at the bank he used to work in. This was 86, and as a part of his eligibility for his grade, he was actually given a car, an ambassador car with a driver. So you can imagine how happy all of us were at the fact that for the first time in our lives we were being given a car as a part of his eligibility. But the euphoria was quite short-lived, because he actually went back to his bank seniors and said that I don't want a car, give me a bike. So yeah, they took back the car and they purchased a brand new SD for him, SD Road King. I think it was around 86, and he used to travel to his bank in the bike. And again, this bike was again not meant to stay with us long, because in Bihar there is a festival called as Chhat. So what happens at this festival, I am not very sure. One of our Bihari sort of brothers and subscribers can elaborate further on what's the significance and what's the ritual behind this festival. But people throng to the banks of the Ganges river in Patna, and they worship the Ganges river and all that sort of a thing. And even we had actually gone to where the Ganga flows in Patna to witness all the rituals and the festivities. And when we came back, you guessed it, the motorcycle was gone. Yeah. And obviously, given our luck with motorcycles, it stayed gone. It wasn't coming back. We did all of the police complaint and everything, but it just stayed gone. So all of that happened, and I suppose that was pretty much the last motorcycle in my father's life. And we again came back to Bangalore in about 1988, and when that happened, he permanently shifted to scooters. So he bought my maternal uncle, my mother's brother. So he actually had a scooter called as Alvin Pushpak. I'm sure you guys would not even have heard of these names probably, but my maternal uncle had that scooter and he wanted to sell it, and my father purchased it from him, and he had it for some time. And after that he ended up purchasing the Bajaj Chetak, his own Bajaj Chetak, brand new, from the Kivraj Motors showroom in Kasturba Road. I still remember going with him to take delivery, and it was quite a special thing. This was somewhere in the 90s. Oh, the king's picture, our own Nata Sarvabhauma, Dr. Rajkumar. Okay, right, where was I? Yeah, so the Bajaj Chetak, so it stayed with him for pretty much the rest of his riding life. And again in 95 he got transferred to Bijapur, which is one of the small towns in Bangalore, and we went there, the whole family. And I had just gotten my learner's license in Bijapur for the two-wheeler. And my father actually, every day when he would come back from the bank, he actually trained me how to ride the Bajaj Chetak. So I still recall the long rides in Bijapur after my father came back with the hand-operated clutch and gear shift. I am not even sure if any of you guys are aware, or yeah, some of the younger guys especially, with operating the clutch and hand gear. So first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. So that's how the scooters work. This was much before the days of the Kinetic Honda and Activa, the gearless, before the gearless era began in scooters. And I mastered the craft on the Bajaj Chetak. And just for information, for those who don't know, Bajaj Chetak is actually a very powerful scooter, very torquey and very powerful, very quick. And it's a 175cc scooter, I think, and a very powerful scooter. And I learnt how to manage it two-wheeler on the Bajaj Chetak. And after that, a short while after my father was comfortable that I know how to ride the scooter, how to manage the scooter, he said, I can buy you a moped. So this was around the time I was in my first year pre-university, sorry, my first year Bachelor's of Commerce. So he said, I can buy you a moped, and which one do you want? So obviously my father being how he is, very strict and quite a disciplinarian and everything, there was no scope of even me negotiating a motorcycle or anything of that sort. So it was quite clear. He said, you are getting a moped, and tell me which one it is. So I looked at all the mopeds on the market, and I finally selected the Hero Puck, because that was one of the youngsters mopeds at the time. And the specific moped which I chose was not the starter version, but the Hero Puck Shakti. So Hero Puck was a geared moped, which was another novelty of the time. For those who remember, and for those who don't know, Hero Puck was a moped with gear. That was its whole shtick. And it just had two gears, one gear to accelerate and one gear to ride. And Hero Puck Shakti was, and even I think the Hero Puck Turbo Sport, I think those came in a 3-geared version as well. And I think the Hero Puck Turbo Sport also had a gearless version, but it was quite expensive among the 3 variants. And I knew that that was something my father wouldn't buy me. So I selected the Hero Puck Shakti, and I bought it. And I had it right from 95 in Bijapur to about 99 or 2000 when I shifted back to Bangalore. And what are my thoughts about that moped? So quite a quick moped. I have seen some very good times on it, but lot of issues. So especially even in the smallest of drizzle, that moped would just stop. I don't know what was the problem even to this day. Even if it was the smallest of drizzle, that motorcycle was unreliable. It wouldn't move. I would recall days of kicking the starter. It wouldn't crank, it wouldn't start. Then somehow after things got dry, it would start up again, and I mostly recall the problems. That's how bad that moped was. And I had just started my journey as an article trainee with Lovelock and Lewis at the time in 98. This was to become a chartered accountant, so to speak, which I ultimately never did. But anyway, I started my chartered accountant in training journey as an articled clerk, as the institute calls it, with Lovelock and Lewis, which was the member firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. So around the second year of my articleship, I still recall this next bit of detail in a very high definition 4K memory. So this was a time when me and my father had gone to Mysore. We had actually gone to Nanjangud, which is a famous pilgrimage place in Karnataka. The resident deity of the Nanjangud main temple is Lord Shiva. In fact, the god who I worship and revere the most even today, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva means such a huge thing in my life. That's probably a topic for another vlog. But anyway, so we had been to Nanjangud, and okay, I'm almost approaching Adeshwar, the destination. So I will continue the vlog very soon, guys. So signing off for now, and this will continue. Bye. Okay, so yeah, I just got done with Riders Arena on the mud flap, and just a minute. Yeah, so I just got done with Adeshwar Riders Arena on the mud flap. So it was literally one of the generic mud flaps that he has actually fixed with Fevikwik. So Had quite an interesting chat with him on some of the upcoming product pipeline that he is designing for the Honda CB350, and I have told him that I will come back to his shop for a video on what's coming. So keep an eye on the channel. You should be very soon seeing some very interesting products that he and his team are working on. Right, so let's go back to the story of my motorcycling life. And I think at the time of stopping, I was telling you about me and my father's visit to Nanjangud, the place of pilgrimage, on a typical temple visit. And we had halted in Mysore, and I still recall this moment in very vivid clarity. And we were actually standing in one of the famed circles of Mysore just after our dinner, and my father says to me, he says, look, I know that you visit a lot of prestigious clients as a part of your job in audit, and it does make an impression on the kind of what you ride basically. So he said, I think it makes a lot of difference if you have a motorcycle for your requirements rather than going around in the Hero Puck. And this came as a bolt out of the blue. I was least expecting my father to broach such a topic, but he did, and I was overjoyed and I was over the moon that he was actually thinking of buying a motorcycle for me. And we didn't talk about which motorcycle it was going to be or what, but he just let the idea linger in the air. And soon after, we actually came back to Bangalore, and a few days passed, and the eager sort of person I was, I think at this point I was probably already around 22 years of age. And I asked him, listen, you recall this conversation we had about the motorcycle and everything? So he said, yeah, even I have been thinking about it. So one of my uncles, his cousins, so he entrusted him with the task of finding and deciding upon a good motorcycle. Of course, at the time, my first choice was the RX 100, which was still in production, but I knew that was not going to happen. So I knew that was not happening, and if I asked for that bike, I would pretty much lose the window of opportunity that had opened up to me. So I was not I decided not to be that foolhardy, but I wanted something which was a bit stylish looking. I didn't want the typical CD 100 type of design of those times, and something which was a bit stylish looking, at least in a relative sense at the time, was the newly launched Splendor. So why Splendor? Because it was a Hero Honda, so I always knew about the Hero Honda reputation of the day, and it even had this little bit of a windscreen and the twin clocks and everything. So I wanted it, but it was slightly on the expensive side compared to, I think my father had a budget of about 38,000 rupees or 40,000 rupees at the time, which is typically what the Hero Hondas and everything used to sell for. And I still recall the price which we paid for the Splendor, which was around 48,000 rupees. So even the 10,000 rupees extra, I approached it with a sense of trepidation, because I wasn't really sure how my father would take it. And I told him that look, I've looked at everything. I obviously don't want those really crazy, silly, dangerous, fast motorcycles like the RX 100 or the Shogun or the bikes of such ilk, because I wanted to butter him up a little bit to say that I was thinking very responsibly, and I wanted a sensible, mature bike. So part one of the job was done quite well. He said, okay, sure, so you can have the Splendor, but his condition was that you must also continue to ride the Hero Puck. I don't want it to sit in one corner and rust. And to which obviously no prizes for guessing. I said yes, done. And soon enough, I went with this uncle of mine to the Prakash Motors showroom on Lal Bagh Road, and very shortly thereafter, my first motorcycle, brand new, gleaming, shining Hero Honda Splendor, came home. It was the black one with that sort of a purple stickering patch on the side, and it was 99. The year was 99, and I still recall the registration number of that bike, because the bike's registration number, the last 4 digits, it was 9936, and it had a very special significance for me, because the year was 99 in which I bought the motorcycle, and 36, the last 2 digits, were the number of the house in which we stayed in Jayanagar. So I very quickly attached some sort of a significance to it, and the bike was bought in 99, and 36 is the house to which it belongs. That was how I sort of attached some sort of a meaning to the registration number. So after that, I rode that bike in all sorts of conditions. It carried me very faithfully in all sorts of weather, all sorts of terrain, all sorts of jobs and duties, and summoning, and every condition imaginable. Not a single breakdown that bike had, as far as I can remember. I used to get it serviced quite regularly. Not a single breakdown, and if I recall correctly, I'm not exaggerating, guys, I'm not trying to over glorify it for the sake of glorifying it. If I recall correctly, for about the 10 years that I had that bike, if my memory serves me right, I don't think that bike even had a puncture. Yeah, so there you go. That's Hero Honda reliability and trust for you. And I think owning that bike was the start of my fondness for the Honda brand. And it's a bit ironical that today I am sitting on another Honda while I recite this little long rambled story. I'm sure most of you must have probably dropped off or snoozed off by now, because this story is such a personal story. And yeah, so I had the Hero Honda for about 10 years. But then what happened is, in 2005, I joined another job, and this job actually sent me for my first overseas trip to UK, to Cardiff. And one of my very good friends, who I almost consider as an elder brother to me, he actually suggested to me that, Pradeep, when you're in UK, I want you to save all the per diem which you get in the UK, and when you come back to Bangalore, I want you to purchase your first car. Of course, at the time I had no inclination towards a car, or even any sort of a fascination or fondness for a car. And I said, but sir, I don't need a car, I am a bike person, I am very happy with my Splendor. He said, look, you don't get it. As of 2005, I was about 28 years of age. He said, you are about 28, and very soon you are going to be married, and it always makes a good impression if your wife to be, she sort of knows that her husband owns at least a small car, so that you guys can move around in comfort and all of that. And of course, me being me, I had never even thought about all this, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that he was right. And I did exactly as he said. I saved quite a lot of money by not wasting money and not splurging it on this, that and everything, and came back with a little bit of decent savings back to Bangalore. I was there in UK for about 3 months, so saved all the per diem that I could, the per diem allowance, the daily allowance that I could, and also my salary for the 3 months was anyway waiting in the bank account in Bangalore. So with all of that money, I had enough money to make a down payment at least on a car. So I ended up buying a used pre-owned Maruti Zen at the time. And when this happened, a very strange thing happened in my motorcycling journey. So all along, I considered myself as somebody who would pretty much be restricted or confined to owning pretty much bikes, and I would never have a car. But when a typical middle class person gets a car for the first time in his life, that sort of experience goes to his head in a little bit, and that's what happened. I started using the car more and more. I almost felt ashamed to sort of ride my Splendor, and wherever I went, it was pretty much in the car. My Splendor started to sit more and more in my house, and not much use. I would start it up once every now and then, just use it just for a fancy, but it was pretty much the car. And this happened for quite some time, and in 2008 I left for Dubai. I got a job in Dubai and I left for Dubai. Of course, even before going to Dubai, I was all car, and I started researching good cars in Dubai to buy, because owning cars in Dubai is quite an easy experience. Getting a license is very difficult, but buying any of the top class cars is not all that difficult. So that's what happened. I left for Dubai, and I first bought a Honda Civic in Dubai, and I had it for about a year, but then a craving for German brands of cars started to bite me. And I always had a fascination for Mercedes rather than BMW or Audi or Volkswagen in terms of the marque German brands in cars. I was never a BMW person. I don't have much fondness for them. I am not much of an Audi person. But there is something about a Mercedes which really fascinates me. It fascinated me then, it fascinates me now. So soon enough, I sold my 1-year-old Honda Civic, and I bought a pre-owned Mercedes C280. So for those who don't know, the C280 is part of the starter series of Mercedes. So the C class is the starter class, the E class is the mid-range, and the S class is the top of the line, the luxury range. And the C class 280 is 2.8 liters engine, very powerful, and it was the avant-garde sort of the turbo engine, super powerful, and I really started to enjoy that car. And about 3 years later, my wife also got her license, and I had almost decided at the time that I want some sort of an SUV like car, and no prizes for guessing, it was again going to be a Mercedes. So I bought a Mercedes ML 350, which is this sort of a mini SUV in the Mercedes line, again a pre-owned one. And I gave my old car to my wife, the C280, and she would drive the car pretty much in our neighborhood in Dubai, and to drop my daughter to school and to pick her up, and just to go to the nearby mall or the shop. Didn't take it any place much else than that. And I started using the ML 350 to go to work and so on. And this is when, okay, about 3-4 years after I had already been living in Dubai, my bug for the motorcycle started biting me back. And in Dubai, it's pretty much all the super bikes that you see. All the Pulsars and the Unicorns are pretty much the delivery boys bikes for the courier and for the food delivery and all that. But the real good bikes are, Dubai is mostly a Harley country, so Harley is what sells a lot in Dubai, only because of the glamour. Nobody knows much else about the technicalities or anything. They all just like dressing up in fancy clothes in the typical Harley attire and ride Harleys with a lot of sound and exhaust change and everything. But to each their own. So I would gaze longingly at these motorcycle groups that would ride on the Sheikh Zayed Road when me and my family would be in our car going somewhere, and I would longingly gaze at those motorcycles passing by. And my wife started to notice it after some time. She said, what's happening with you? Why do you look at those bikes like that? I said, look, let me be truthful. I love bikes. I've always loved bikes. It's just that somewhere in my ascent to superstardom away from middle class, I somehow forgot that. But it is very real, and I really love bikes. I wish I could have one soon. And she said, but you already have the best cars in the world. You have the Mercedes, you have 2 of them, but what is it about these bikes? I said I can't explain. It is what it is. And then ultimately around I think 2016-ish, I applied for a motorcycle license in one of the driving schools in Dubai, and started my motorcycle learning, so to speak. So there is a lot of very strict testing and techniques and protocols and rules that you are supposed to follow when learning motorcycles. And of course, the guys at the driving school, they taught me a lot of good tips on balancing and riding slow, and all sorts of things, how to check blind spots. And I picked up a few very invaluable motorcycle riding tips in Dubai. Even though I had been riding motorcycles for about 10 years before I went, I thought I knew it all, but hey, what the hell did I know? So 2016 I bought my first Harley. I mindlessly bought it only because everybody buys Harleys in Dubai. It was the Street Bob, a 1700cc bike, a bobber style motorcycle, and I had some very good times with it. But today, with all the extra things which I know about motorcycles and everything, I will no longer buy a Harley. They are great machines, technologically very superior, but a lot of their selling points are mostly based on hype rather than anything sensible. That's my personal opinion. So I don't really have it for Harleys anymore. I would much rather buy some sort of a sensible adventure tourer which can take you over any sort of terrain, and can carry luggage, and can seat you comfortably, and can go long distances and all that sort of a thing. Typically a horse. An adventure tourer is a horse. So that was it. And 2018 we took a decision as a family to return to Bangalore for good from Dubai for various reasons. Probably I'll cover all of that in a separate vlog in the future. But about 2 years after having had that Harley Street Bob, we returned to Bangalore in 2018, and the journey in terms of the motorcycling has been continuing ever since. So when I was coming back to Bangalore, I again started researching which motorcycle I would own, because the motorcycling landscape in Bangalore had drastically changed from the time I had left Bangalore. So at the time, after doing a lot of research, I concluded that the CBR 250R seemed to be the most popular choice in terms of being a sports tourer and an all-rounder and everything, and that's the bike I actually bought when I landed in Bangalore. I still have that bike even today. I don't ride it much, obviously. I'll be selling it very soon, but that's the first bike I bought. And then shortly thereafter, I bought the Duke 390, and shortly after the Duke 390, the Interceptor, and after the Interceptor, the Bullet Standard 500, and after that, the KTM 390 Adventure, and after the KTM 390 Adventure, the Honda CBR 650F, and after that, obviously, this one, the Honda CB 350. So a flurry of bikes in such a short time, in about 2 years. Bought, sold, obviously lost a bit of money, but it's okay. It helped me discover what sort of motorcycling experiences I am more tuned for, or what kind of motorcycles suit me. So I think I have discovered that now, what I actually like. So it's mostly these kind of classic retro styled motorcycles, like the CB350 or the Bullets, or that sort of motorcycle. And secondly, I think the adventure style is what I really like as the second bike. So that's pretty much the combination I have decided on for now. And so that's an overall long journey of my motorcycling life, guys. So I hope it was of some relevance or some interest to all of you. God, I went down the memory lane myself in recalling all this. Such a lot of details, such a lot of so much. I'm not sure if the camera is still recording, but I'll continue to speak regardless. So that was it. That's been my motorcycling journey so far, and what comes next, I don't know. I'm very happy with the CB350 as of now. I was in fact happier even with the standard 500 which I had, but somehow the Honda thing had to happen, the CB350, and it happened. I think I'll be keeping this bike for quite some time. That's what I am thinking about it now. Of course, we shall see how things pan out. And even the 390 Adventure I quite like, so I am hoping to keep these two bikes for a really long time. That's the hope. Of course, I still have a bit of soft corner for two bikes, which shall always be at the back of my mind. Three bikes, in fact, to be honest. So one is the Versys 650, which is one of my all-time favorites. The second one is the Will It or Want It CB500X. The Will It or Want It in terms of will it release or want it release in India. I think indications are strong that it will release in India, but we shall see. So CB500X is one on my radar, and ultimately my grand wish list, the Africa Twin. So all very expensive bikes. Versys can still happen, CB500X can still happen, but I'm not sure about the Africa Twin. It's very expensive, but we shall see. So that's a little bit about my motorcycling life, guys. I hope it was a bit of value or entertainment or whatever to you. So I've reached home, and thanks for being with me on this video for so long, and take care. Have a good rest of the Sunday. And this video may be coming up in the night sometime, I'm not sure, but I'll see all of you very soon in the next one. And here I sign off with the customary palm close.